Okay, Ashlyn, just to check sound, you can hear me?
Yes, Godfrey, can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, I've muted my. Okay. Hi, Ashlyn.
Hi.
Okay, no, that's fine. So I'm going to mute and then do the email.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Godfrey.
Okay, thank you.
还剩嘴你了。 Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the mental health workshop hosted by CESA YPF KZN. Our speaker today is Thanisha Sewpersad.
Not waiting for the people outside to react, he had already pulled Rachel open arms towards him.
Thanisha is a student registered counselor and is registered with the Health Professional Council of South Africa. She has a passion for psychology and strongly believes that without psychology, people struggle to understand themselves and those around them. She has worked in Bali with individuals facing the complexities of schizophrenia, abandoned children, and various mental health challenges. She's also worked in Scotland, where she immersed herself in groundbreaking research. Collaborating with a dedicated team, they embarked on a mission to enhance criminal identification processes for Her Majesty's Police Force. Back home in South Africa, she took the initiative to establish her own non-profit organization dedicated to providing psychoeducational support to underserved communities, particularly in rural areas. Now, Thanisha continues to serve South African communities through the National Center for Child Protection. This initiative underscores her deep commitment to making mental health resources available to all, regardless of their geographical location. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Thanisha.
Thank you, Ashlyn, for that introduction. Yes, I have very strong passion in mental health. Actually, I'm not sure, must I switch my camera on or keep it off, or what do I do?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, I will switch it on at the end, after the presentation. I'm just going to share my screen now. Doesn't seem like I have permission to share.
Let me see if I can sort that out.
Let me just try. Okay, I think it should be fine. Can you see?
Yes, it's come up on my side.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you everyone for making time to attend this workshop. We always believe in the world of mental health that if you come to a workshop, attend a support group, or even book a session with a counselor or psychologist, you're already taking a very brave step towards putting yourself first. Recently, mental health is becoming a lot more popular because anxiety, I think, is a big factor in many people's lives. And often, people talk about a work-life balance. And some people say, but work is life and life is work. And unfortunately, I don't necessarily agree with that from a mental health perspective, because it's about a balance. Work provides or gives you the means to creating the life that you would like. So when we say work-life balance, work is your job of what you study to do. It helps you pay the bills, etc. And life is, on the other hand, everything else that makes you who you are. Your hobbies, your relationships, your self-care, social life, and so on. As we go into this workshop, so that's why I talk about boundaries. Boundaries are more than just saying no, but it's allowing yourself to set up a structure in your life that creates a balance for you to be who you are and also pursue a career. As we go forward, I want you to think about your day, 24 hours, as split up into 3 parts. 3 8-hour parts. The first one is sleep, which you can't really negotiate on or compromise. And 8 hours of play, 8 hours of work. And within that, it might bleed into each other, which, it does happen. But as a rule of thumb, I always say, don't allow more than 3 hours to borrow or lend from the other one. Okay, so that brings us again to boundaries. So I just want to read a little definition to you. Healthy boundaries determine proper behavior in our relationships, ensuring safety on both sides. So good boundaries are essential for self-care and prosperity. Keep in mind that boundaries are flexible. They can change depending on the demands of the environment. And boundaries are not a wall, but boundaries are definitely respected, even though other people might not necessarily like them. So before we begin, have a little analogy, which is it's a delicate art of balancing the demands of work and the beauty of life. Boundaries are your guiding stars, and hopefully in this workshop today, we'll be able to help you find some of those stars in your journey. So this is an overview of what we will be covering. I'm going to send Ashlyn a link to post in the chat. It's a link to a little survey that I have created. And throughout this workshop, I will be asking you questions basically about your mental health or your boundaries, your perception, just encouraging you to self-reflect. So in the next slide, you will see a QR code at the bottom of the screen. And in a few other slides, you will see other QR codes. The QR code takes you to the exact same form. It's just to prompt you to remember to answer the next question. And if you can't scan the QR code, you can access it in the chat as well. And at the end of the presentation, I'll share the data if we have time. Also remember that as a student registered counsel with the HPCSA and POPI Act, none of your information is shared, personal information is shared with me, only what you respond on the survey. So before we understand what boundaries are, we need to understand what we need to identify within ourselves as what we call burnout, meaning that's our warning sign to say we don't have boundaries right now and we need to start looking at ourselves. So like an overloaded system, the human body and mind is a system as well that can be overloaded and overworked. And some of the signs are emotional exhaustion, which is really your red light going, I'm exhausted, I can't focus, I'm really under pressure right now. So we call this your system overload, which can also include reduced performance. So for engineers, it's like facing any technical issues that might slow down your project. And then you're unable to be productive, make effective decisions, and you might start to stagnate in what you're doing in your work and personal life. Depersonalization is when you feel very disconnected from your colleagues and your loved ones. It's like a malfunctioning communication system. You feel distant, less collaborative, and you just start to feel isolated, or you start to isolate yourself. Okay. And our last one is physical symptoms. So that's a machine breaking under stress. Your body shows you signs when it's reaching that breaking point, such as headaches, change in diet, poor sleep patterns, and of course, fatigue. So for our first question, have you experienced any of the above? Okay, so you can scan the code and it will take you to a form. And then you can answer that question for me. Okay. I also have a few more questions for you, if you don't mind answering. So the first one is, what's the biggest source of stress in your engineering career, basically? How often do you feel that work-related issues spill over into your personal life? And which aspects of your work-life balance needs to most improve right now? Okay, so I've got one response so far. Okay. Okay, responses are coming in. Great. Thank you. We can continue as we go through. So now let's discuss the types of boundaries that exist. Believe it or not, there are 7 types of boundaries. And in our quest to find your guiding stars and create your work-life balance, it's essential to understand these various boundaries and what role they play in your life. So just as an engineer, where each component has a specific function, these boundaries serve distinct purposes. Okay. As I go through this, I invite all of you to just reflect on what boundaries you have struggled with the most, and how it sort of impacted your life, and just kind of hold that answer with you. And as we unpack further in the workshop, let's see if you can find a different approach to that challenge that you experienced. So the first one I'm going to talk about is time, because time is everything. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we have 3 8-hour parts in a day. So time, once again, involves allocating specific times for work, personal life, and self-care. Self-care is not just for ladies, it's also for men as well, whether it's, I want to say watching the rugby game, but that was a little bit stressful. So just finding what makes you relax. So they help ensure that you don't allow any work-related tasks to impose on your personal life and vice versa. Okay. The next one we have is physical boundaries. And this is whether you allow people into your personal space. At work, you might not. In your personal life, you might. And it's very important to designate this, because if you want a handshake is a handshake. It's not a hug. If you want a hug, then that's a hug. So it's very important for you to sort of regulate what you want within your space. The next one is conversational boundaries, which is the type of discussions you want to engage in. There are a lot of hot topics right now that people don't necessarily want to talk about, and you don't have to engage in it. You're more than welcome to say, I don't want to be part of this conversation. Then you have internal boundaries, which is your self-regulation. How much energy do you want to spend on yourself? How much energy do you want to spend on others? So the interesting thing is introversion and extroversion come in here quite a bit. And from a psychological perspective, introversion and extroversion is not understood the same way as society understands it. So an introvert can enjoy being in a social setting. It just means that they recuperate their energy in a private space. And an extrovert also likes to be alone, but recuperates their energy in a social space. So it's very important to understand where you are on that spectrum, and really listen to yourself to say when it is enough, when you need social contact, when you need to be alone. The next one is your material boundaries. So this is your monetary decisions, giving into your own or others. Okay, so it's how do you want to spend, what do you want to do, how do you want to save, etc., etc. Your material boundaries can lead to some sort of criticism or peer pressure. So that's why it's really important to set limits on what you want to do with your personal items. Next, we have emotional boundaries. Emotional boundaries pertain to protecting your emotions and your well-being. So it's recognizing and communicating your feelings and needs to others. I think very often we, regardless of gender or identity, we are afraid to say that I'm just not having a bad day or I'm not okay today. And we really should start making that the norm. if we look at celebrities or close friends who have passed on or taken their own lives, it's often because their emotions weren't expressed and no one was there to listen. So emotion works two ways, in expressing and receiving. And our last one is mental boundaries. This refers to how you protect your mental and emotional well-being. So sort of regulating your emotions, thoughts, information that you want to take in, that you keep in your mind. And this is where your stress regulation is. How self-critical are you? Do you take home your work? Do you allow that work to really spill into that personal life of yours? Okay. I'll just give you a little bit to answer this question. Okay, I'm getting very great response and feedback from everyone. Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, so next we understand what a boundary is. And I'm sure as we were going through the boundaries, you might have identified certain things in your life that you sorry, I lost my train of thought. So you sort of assimilated it to something in your life where you've struggled, okay? And now you're seeing how it can be important and probably wondering how to put that up. So before we get into that, boundaries in the workplace. So if you create well-defined boundaries, it reduces conflicts and misunderstandings, not only in the workplace, but also interpersonal relationships. And it also makes sure that you and everyone around you knows the roles, the demands, responsibilities, and limits. Okay. So some of the relevancy behind it is understanding personal needs. So it helps you to recognize and express your needs, such as when you need a break, when you need privacy, when do you need time off. Balancing autonomy and collaboration. Everyone is autonomous, and everyone has the right to ensure they have freedom in that workspace to be independent, and also to allow them to be an effective team member, especially if you are introverted and you need space by yourself. Then it's really important for you to just take a step back and say to your team, I just need 5-minute, 10-minute break and I'll be back. And don't push yourself. Don't push that limit. Your mind or your body might already be telling you that enough's enough. The next one is it helps empower your self-advocacy. So setting boundaries is actually an act of advocacy. It empowers you to communicate your needs once again and limits. And I think that's something that we don't often talk about is a limit in communication, a limit in taking on new projects. The question is, do we take on this new project because it's going to look good on our CV for the next job we apply for? Or can we just say no for now because there's already too much on our plate? So you also kind of got to ask yourself, am I spreading myself too thin? Quality over quantity or quantity over quality? What are you trying to achieve? Okay. It also helps to reduce conflict, of course, because you have to start communicating effectively with others. So this ensures, once again, that roles, responsibilities, and limits are set, and that's really important. And then what our achievement goal is to prevent burnout. So by understanding yourself and setting those boundaries and setting your needs and limits, you're already giving your brain a break in terms of having to overthink or overwork or overcompensate or try to spread your energy out. Okay, so in the engineering world, your projects are initiated with clear objectives in mind. Just like a project, you need to set and maintain boundaries for your work-life balance. It's important to define your objectives. So in the counseling setting, I often explain this to my clients as, think of yourself as climbing a ladder. You've climbed a ladder through school, you've climbed, continuing the same ladder, the ladder of life, through university, and now you're at work. You're on a new level of the ladder. And being at work, you're trying to get to the next level of the ladder. And if you only focus on that promotion, you are not going to celebrate your small victories, because you're going to forget that there's steps in between the levels that you need to climb. And in order to figure out what those steps are, you need to set measurable and clear objectives. So often remember, and I think that a lot of top CEOs or COOs, etc., will say that they spend their whole life working and then they get to the top and the relationships are strange. They don't really have hobbies. Their health is very bad. They've developed horrible habits. So those are lessons to take and incorporate while you're setting your goals. Also make it measurable. I often tell my clients, try to make it maybe measurable every week or every 2 weeks, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. Okay. If you need feedback from colleagues or superiors, then maybe make it a bi-monthly thing. So you can then set out your steps and how you achieve it. Always make sure it's measurable. So the knowledge I know now is more than I knew 2 weeks ago, which is great. How can I now optimize this knowledge moving forward? Okay. Don't forget, when you're creating your ladder and all your steps, it needs to align with your values and your priorities in life. If going out every weekend and getting drunk is not a priority in your life, but you would rather prioritize advancing your skills, don't give in to that peer pressure. Know your limit, know your physical boundary, your time boundary, your material boundaries. Okay, so that all comes in. And also ensure that while you're doing this, you continue pursuing your hobbies. Hobbies also have goals. If you started playing golf, the aim or the goal is to play each hole on par. Or if you start a gym, you have a weight goal. So don't miss out or don't allow your hobbies to fade away into the background. Now we get to time management technique. I'm not sure who it is, but I saw that someone mentioned that they don't understand the techniques that were in the question. We're going to go over that now. So at the end of the next 3 slides, you'll definitely understand the 3 techniques better. Okay, so time management is one of the biggest things that we discuss. It really is, but no one actually knows how to manage time. The first time I was told that we have 3 8-hour parts in a day, I thought, no way that's possible, because it's very hard to visualize. Me, I'm a visual person. I'm not sure. I think maybe most of you might also be visual people. So I would like to teach you or show you 3 techniques that you can use to take a step forward in creating that balance. Okay. So remember that time management technique, basically your compass. It's guiding you through your day. It helps you to prioritize tasks. It helps you not to lose sight of what truly matters. So the first one we have is the Eisenhower matrix. So this is a very simple but very powerful tool. And it was named after the former US President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And he said, what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. So this is a really nice visual way to sort of categorize what you need to do based on their urgency. So in quadrant 1, it's important and urgent. Tasks in this quadrant require your immediate attention. It might be a deadline, it's your priorities. It might also be a family thing. Okay, so just because it's important and urgent and it requires immediate attention does not mean family or personal life doesn't go in that. It can. The second quadrant is you're not urgent but important. So these activities don't necessarily have a deadline, but they're not time sensitive either. So they usually include long-term planning, your self-care, your personal development, building relationships. If it means following up on a text message or replying to those WhatsApps that you just read, build those relationships. That's where it comes in, because we are people and we need people to survive. Okay, so in your urgent, not urgent but important quadrants, actually where you spend majority of your time in terms of also scheduling. Okay, quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. So these are what we call distractions. Okay, they seem urgent, but they don't contribute significantly to any of your long-term goals. So minimizing these, delegating these whenever possible will definitely free up your time with your top 2 quadrants. Okay, scheduling, for example, is urgent. So it's something that needs to be done because it's going to help you. Meal prep, also very good, very important. You need to eat well. Okay, self-care includes eating well. Responding to other emails. So not the necessarily very urgent ones, but the ones that can maybe wait till the end of the day. And our 4th quadrant is not urgent, not important. This is where time gets wasted. I once had a client who used to spend 4 hours on TikTok. And then I would ask her, okay, so let's try to schedule your life. Where do you fit in self-care? And she just always says she does not have the time. And so then we started looking at social media, and 4 hours on TikTok, 2 hours on Instagram is 6 hours of the day where you could be doing something else. Okay, so don't get sucked into the void or go down the rabbit hole. Because usually that quadrant does not contribute to anything positive in your life. And they also don't need immediate attention. That social media post that's there now will still be there next week. Okay. So the Pomodoro technique has to deal with basically human attention. So I'm sure potentially some of you have heard when you were in school, study for 15 minutes, take a 5-minute break, or study for this amount of time, take a X amount of break. Okay. So with this one, it's similar. So the Pomodoro is basically your kitchen clock. You need to make sure that you're in a space that has no distractions. And it's your optimal workspace. So I have a client, for example, who is very specific about the lighting in the room, and literally right down to the lighting, right down to what you need on your desk is very important for you to create that optimal space with no distractions. Okay, once you've done that, you can choose one task, possibly one from your quadrant 1 in the Eisenhower matrix to focus on. You set your timer for 25 minutes. And in that 25 minutes, you don't do anything except that task that you have selected. So your head's down and you work intensely. You focus exclusively on that. Avoid multitasking, avoid switching to other activities, and really practice your commitment here. Once you're done after 25 minutes, you can then take a 5-minute break. When we say take a break, we usually request that you breathe, do a stretch, walk outside, walk away from your workspace, give your brain that break. And then you repeat it again. Okay. So you can repeat it 3 more times. So you complete 4 Pomodoros. And then you allow yourself a half-an-hour break where you really reflect on your progress and reflect on how it has helped you, basically. And then recharge. Maybe reward yourself with something meaningful or something that you feel to be a reward. Okay. So it's quite an effective technique because it encourages you to work intensely for a certain amount of time. And this has actually shown, research shows that this can boost your concentration. So just to remind you, your brain is a muscle, the laziest muscle in your body. So it will always take the path of least resistance, which is why you get distracted so easily. So this Pomodoro technique is a way of basically exercising your brain to strengthen the concentration. And if you want, you can set your Pomodoro for even longer, 30 minutes, so on. It also helps to reduce procrastination because, I mean, I can just work for 25 minutes. That's not a long time. And you're also balancing your life by allowing yourself to take 5 minutes for yourself each time. Okay. And also it helps you to track your tasks and your progress. It's measurable. Okay. Time blocking. So this is one of my favorite techniques. It once again helps to visualize the day. Helps to visualize how much work is happening and how much play is happening. So you use potentially a Google Calendar or Microsoft Calendar, and you create specific block intervals in which you focus on a task or where you allow yourself to basically also take a break. Okay, so like here, allow yourself these breaks. Okay, so the other thing with this technique is you can use different colors to allow yourself to once again visualize how much time you're spending on different activities. So you can categorize them. Categorizing self-care and family time might seem strange, but when you reflect on how much of time in your life you actually spend on those activities, you'll see that you might not actually be spending that much time. And creating this also helps you create a memory prompt. And it also allows you to create a structure in your life. And as human beings, even though we're humans, we're animals. And just like a lion has a specific time to eat, hunt, and play, humans require some sort of structure, because if we don't have that structure, we might start to feel very overwhelmed. So if you structure your morning, your midday, or your noon, evening, whatever it is, allow yourself some sort of structure. For example, if you want to incorporate exercise into your life, maybe incorporate it before work because it gets your endorphins going. It also sets you in the right headspace just before your day to sort of tackle whatever comes your way. Schedule it into your calendar. It's blocked off and it can't be compromised. Okay. During each block, it also allows you to just focus on that task because nothing is bleeding into it. And also it allows you to just transition from one task to another very seamlessly. This is a very customizable way of time management. Okay, so I would like you now to reflect on these 3 techniques and maybe tell me which one you'd be most interested in trying. Okay, so mitigating stress. So boundaries act as our buffer against stress, which is why it's very important to set a boundary of when to start and end an activity in your daily life. So for the question on how do you start a healthy self-care routine, or how do I implement boundaries, I'd really like you to just really focus and reflect on the next 3 slides. It might give you some inspiration there, and then I'll answer your questions directly at the end. So daily mindfulness pause. Okay, so incorporating a time in your day to practice a mindfulness routine. It's a time where you are not moving. It's a of time where you are completely still. Okay. Research shows that taking this pause reduces your amygdala. Your amygdala produces cortisol, which is the stress hormone in your body, which is what creates that elevated heart rate, shift in diet, lack of sleep, etc., etc. Okay. So as the skill develops further and further, it will prepare you against stressful situations. So I don't know if I had to ask anyone, have you ever engaged with only one of your senses? You'd think that's a bit strange. So I'll give you a little technique to try. It's called mindful eating. So try to eat without doing something else. Okay. When you eat while watching a TV series or while on your cell phone, you actually distracting your brain from the flavors, from the food, from enjoying it, that you might end up actually eating more than you should, or you might end up eating less than you should because your brain's like, no, what we're doing is more interesting, so leave your food. Another thing to do is a technique called 4-7-8 breathing. You breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7, and you breathe out for 8. That has shown to be the most effective way of reducing your amygdala and bringing down your cortisol levels. The next one is the no work email rule. It's unfortunately a consequence of COVID-19 that a lot of people still check their emails after work hours. And it's just about setting that time limit again, blocking the time or setting your Pomodoro or using your Eisenhower matrix to say, I'm not going to do this right now. I'm not going to actually read another email. I need to switch off and I need to engage with others. Sometimes it might be really difficult to communicate to people, right? In terms of how do you actually communicate that you need to switch off at a certain time. And I think it's because we don't have these conversations that it makes that communication really difficult. But we will get to more communication afterwards. So promoting self-care. Boundaries provide time for self-care. So it can be exercise, meditation, pursuing a hobby, setting up a time boundary, or any of those activities are really crucial. So a self-care calendar basically reinforces the activities you want to do. A habit takes 33 days to 206 days to develop, according to research. What makes it successful is your ability to actually prompt yourself to do the activity. Once again, lazy brain. So it will purposefully forget, vindictive in that way. So if you want to create self-care techniques, or if you want to start, I often tell my clients, reflect to when you were a child. What was some of the activities that you really liked to do? Maybe it was a specific sport. Maybe it was reading a book. Maybe it was cooking or helping out in the kitchen, which as an adult would now be cooking. Ask yourself those things and reflect on if it's possible for you to do as an adult and try. Because sometimes we distance ourselves so much from who we are because of life or life demands that we forget what actually makes us feel happy. So I say reflect as a child, reflect back to when you were a child and what you enjoyed. Those activities rejuvenate you. They replenish your energy, and try them out. You might discover that it's still something you enjoy doing, or you might discover that you'd like to try something different. Okay. But it's part of that experimentation that also tells your brain, I'm giving you a chance to be a kid and to explore again. I'm giving you a chance to breathe. And then we have a daily self-care check-in. So ask yourself what self-care activities you engaged in that day and rate your overall well-being. Mindfulness activity is great. It's often great to practice at the end of the day after a shower or bath or dinner, just before bed, because it also helps you to unwind and shut off so you don't take today into tomorrow. And a personal question to you, it's not on the survey, but just for you to reflect on. Do you practice any activities? And if so, what do you do? Okay. The other one is your relationships. So I see a few questions about relationships. How to create or communicate those boundaries. So I'm just going to take it back to human beings are creatures of habit, just like animals. And if you suddenly start doing something differently without communicating that, it's going to be a bit strange. So usually just start the conversation by saying, I've been reflecting a little bit on my life and my time, and I feel like I need to incorporate more time, commit more time to this aspect of my life, and have that conversation with whoever it is. Have that conversation with work's getting too hectic right now, or I love being in the relationship, but I also need quality time to myself. And it takes time, it's an adjustment, but people do start to understand. You can also create a quality time ritual where you set a specific time every day or week, depending on if you live with your partner or not, and you set how you want to spend that time. Okay, it's a very heart-to-heart conversation. A very well-known couples psychologist, Esther Perel, says that a couple who can cook together usually has the strongest relationship and strongest communications. So try new things together and show them that you're not shutting them off. So you're taking that time you spend together and giving it a quality label as opposed to just sitting in front of the TV. So you're making it more enriching. And then you're saying, okay, we've done this. Now I'm going to take time away. Because if you just sit in front of the TV and then take time away, it's not going to have a very good, effect on the other person. And then active listening. So active listening is what us as mental health practitioners are trained to do, because often we don't listen to people. As someone is talking, we're already thinking about our response, as opposed to really listening to the in-between words in terms of how is this making them feel? How would they like, what do they need? Active listening also helps us to communicate in a more empathetic way, okay? It allows us to just show that we really do acknowledge people's feelings. We really do acknowledge that they have feelings, I have feelings. And if we actively listen, we might find that we have similarities in terms of what they're experiencing. Okay, so now we get to the Q&A. So once again, if you haven't posted a question, you're welcome to post it now. I'm just going to go through it and see if I have missed any. So the one question is, how would one start a healthy self-care routine? So I would say reflect on what it is you'd like to change in your life. Is there a habit that you would like to change? Is there a habit that you would like to maybe decrease? For example, social media. Social media, I'm going to use that one because it's a great example. You can actually you can set timers to limit your usage on social media, or you can check your cell phone activity per week, for example. So that's something, so reflect on what you would like to change and reflect what you would like to replace that with. Okay, so it's like swapping out, if you have junk food for lunch, it's swapping that for something healthier, because remember, your stomach absorbs your food and that then regulates your entire system in terms of serotonin, dopamine levels, which help you function, move, sleep, breathe throughout the day. So I would say start with reflecting on what you'd like to change, and then look at what you'd like to replace that with. Okay. How do you put in boundaries without seeming like you are distancing yourself from the team or not wanting to participate or engage with the team? Okay, so this might sometimes be seen as not being involved or not being interested. So once again, in a workplace setting, I would say if you really cannot communicate with the team members because there might be one very aggressive leader in the team and everyone kind of is drawn to that leader. I would recommend getting your HR department involved as a mediator. So you'd like them to just sit in on the conversation. You state exactly what you want from them. I want you to listen in this conversation and facilitate it. I don't want you to do anything else. So you have someone who's there acknowledging. So you have two people actually acknowledging that I'd like to set up this boundary, or I would like to incorporate other aspects, or I would like to just say that this is the cutoff time. I understand that there's a deadline. I produce my work on time, so I can put that limit. Okay, so it's also using your current achievements to say, I am achieving, I am completing tasks, so I am allowed to do this. And that is something, a conversation you have with your direct superior or direct members involved to say, I feel like I'm on the right track. So if I say I want to switch off, I just want to switch off. Okay. Implementing boundaries with those I love. So as I mentioned, it's a heartfelt conversation. Make your time quality time rather than just time, and have that conversation together, and also encourage them to do the same. Okay, so this question is kind of repeated. Okay, what strategies or coping mechanisms can I use to manage stress-related work-life balance? Okay, we kind of covered that a little bit. Just once again, I honestly think that a lot of our stress also comes from us not having clear goals. So if you can also create that ladder, create the steps in your ladder, that's also going to help you to just say, this is what I need, this is what I want, and what's happening at work right now is not right for me. So I need to either change the environment or potentially just communicate with the others around. Okay. How do the consulting company get in touch with you for workshop training? Okay, I will post a number at the end in the chat. I work for the National Center for Child Protection, and we basically have a free national counseling hotline. And if you feel you need help, you're welcome to contact. You can put down that you attended this workshop that I hosted, and a counselor will be allocated to you. And we can just take it from there. Okay, which routine would one follow to regain interest in things that usually made them happy, but they have turned out to feel draining and time-consuming? I actually see this a lot in the counseling setting. It's what we call adrenaline fatigue. Okay, so it's when you are so saturated with stress that nothing is actually enjoyable anymore. And that's where you start with your self-care. If you are experiencing that, your amygdala is inflamed and producing a lot of cortisol. So I would say 4-7-8 breathing technique. Okay, inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. You exhale through your mouth as if you're blowing a candle that's like a meter away from you. When you exhale, you let everything out. And start there. Start there, just stay still, take a 20-minute break once a day where you are not stimulated. Block out sounds, block out smells, get comfortable, close your eyes, relax, and go to a time and place where you felt least stressed or the most happiest, and spend time there. And the more you do that, your amygdala is going to decrease and you will start finding enjoyment once again. I would also recommend contacting the hotline just to chat to someone and to see if there's any other things, other challenges that we could help you with. Okay, this is the last question, I think. With ever-changing workload, do you have advice on how long one should allow a lack of work-life balance before stabilizing again? Okay. So remember that your brain will develop habits and it's lazy. So I wouldn't allow it for longer than a week. Okay. If you have a project or something, then I would say only for that project and not longer. If you don't have a project, then I will say do not tolerate not having a work-life balance at all, because you need to focus on yourself. You won't be working for very long if you start to encounter health problems. Okay, so it's about that making that decision, and that very big decision. And then the last one, sorry, one more. How could one promote mental health effectively in the corporate world, i.e. when deadlines and bottom lines take first priority? That's a very challenging question. In the corporate world, there unfortunately is not a lot of sympathy or empathy when it comes to mental health. The people who have come before you have worked very hard without the mental health protection or umbrella, there. And so there's a bigger lack of understanding. But you, as the younger generation, the newer employees or the new mindset, can sort of start talking about it in the workplace. It honestly starts with a conversation. And I will show you what I mean now with the results from the survey that you took part in. It honestly just starts with a conversation. So this is your key takeaways. So well done on surviving this workshop. I hope that you have taken away something that you could practice in your everyday life. I just want to show you this. Okay, so these were your responses. Okay, promise there's no names. So promoting mental health in the workspace. Okay, it's a conversation. Okay, a lot of you have said, okay, 2.9% have said all of the above. Physical symptoms, depersonalization, reduced performance. The purpose of this was to show you that in what you are going through is not, you're not alone. There are other people experiencing it as well. So talk about it. Start making it a conversation. You will be surprised by how many people start joining that conversation. And if you need to, start a little support group at work to say we're dealing with these things. How do you go through it, or how do others cope with it? Once again, if you look at the source, it's between everyone is experiencing something. It's a conversation that you need to have. How often do you feel that the stress spills into your personal life? A very, very small percent said never. Okay, so once again, dealing with mental health alone is a very big struggle. So I really would encourage you to start this conversation in the workshop. There are so many of you that have joined this workshop today and taken this knowledge that your colleagues could also benefit from. So share the knowledge from this workshop. Start a conversation in your workplace and see where it gets you in that regard. What needs balance or what needs improving right now? A lot said managing stress and burnout. Okay, so again, you're not alone in what you're experiencing. I'm very glad I touched on time, seeing as that's the majority. And the next is mental, and that's where your mindfulness techniques can come in. Eisenhower, very glad to see that. And I won't go further down because that is questions. So I'm just going to stop sharing. Taking lunch breaks. I would definitely recommend lunch breaks. You should never ever skip on that. Food is, once again, your stomach absorbs what you give it. If you give it junk food, it's not absorbing anything, and it's going to make your mood and energy levels worse than better. So having a very healthy lunch would definitely help you. And I see someone said that they've recently started to alternate between using public and driving to work to allow me time to myself without being occupied. I take this time to at least read a book. I love that. Reading is great if you're into reading, just to allow yourself to relax and unwind. Okay, I think that is it. I don't think there's any more questions. Yes, okay, I think I've done everything actually.
Thanks, Thanisha. Appreciate it.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
sharing your expertise and passion with us today.
Mhm.
Your insight has been invaluable, and we appreciate your time and dedication to the cause of mental health.
It's a pleasure. Oh, sorry, before I forget, let me just send this counseling number in the chat. Okay, so it's 076-037-6345. Okay, you can contact them via WhatsApp.
Perfect. Thanks, Thanisha.
You're welcome.
To our attendees, thank you guys for joining us today. I hope this workshop provided valuable tools to assist with work as well as overall well-being. Before we wrap up, please don't forget to register for our upcoming quiz night on the 16th of November. Invitations will be circulated through CESA. Until then, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
You're
Bye.
welcome.